Welcome to the Advanced Investor Alliance podcast, where investors achieve their full potential through real and authentic content. This podcast is to inspire you to go beyond the mediocre results of the masses.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to kind of like our very first Advanced Investor Alliance. I know you heard the last one, our very first one, 0001. This is 002. And I'm just excited. So we're going to bring on one of our board members, our founding member of Advanced Investor Alliance, who is a superstar. We mentioned him on the last episode, and we want to bring him on today. I'm excited, of course. I'm with my co-host, Zach Lorenzen. What's up, homeboy?
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How's it going?
Welcome to the show. Okay, so how did I meet Michael? Heavy breather. Sound like Darth Vader over there. So back up a little bit. He's a little... If you see Michael in human form, Darth Vader is small compared to this guy. How tall are you? Let's just get to the physicality.
I'm about 6'3".
And all muscle. Anyway, I actually met Michael. It's been a blessing ever since I met this guy. And it's been a long journey together. He's basically the one that has held my hand, pushed me into commercial real estate. A lot of people don't know that. That's all going to come out here on this episode. But I met him through his son-in-law, who is a rock star, Shane Henry, and I was going to actually call him to be on the book release, see if he could play. I thought of that too.
Awesome.
I'm going to call him today. And that's how I met you. We met at a RIA, and you were in the back real quiet, and you've been doing real estate since 1984. So that's how I met Mr. McClure, through an introduction through a son-in-law. And if you don't know Maggie McClure, she is a recording artist, several albums out, goes on tour. So get on Spotify, like Maggie McClure.
Brand new movie.
She just did a new movie.
Yeah.
So success drips from Michael McClure, and I'm so thankful that you're on your own show. You own it as well. So,
Amen.
Zach, how did you meet my friend, Mr. McClure?
I met Michael through a mutual friend, Justin Gentry. Really got to know him at a conference in San Diego, I think 2019. I got to talk quite a bit and been friends since.
Awesome.
Yes.
And you guys have had lunch outside, right?
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah. Zach and I have gotten together several times.
And he's not far from you. He lives in Norman
We're
as
in
well.
Norman,
right?
one of the few down there.
All the weird ones down south of
all the good ones.
All 40. All right, Michael. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You used to, I love you when you always say this. I used to wear an apron or
Yes,
a tool belt.
Yeah, well, let's back up just a fuzz.
All right, tell me.
We're going to start this off the Michael McClure way.
All right.
Okay, all right. Good, awesome morning, Stephen and Zach. Gentlemen, I am humbly honored to be here today to share with you and those listening in, and I'm especially excited about Advanced Investors Alliance. First, I want to share my appreciation at all the many hours of creativity, ingenious hard work, and research that you both, along with our founding members, have poured into this amazing opportunity for like-minded people to join a highly motivated mastermind group as a team to help them be a better person, smarter, wiser, and become more powerful and much more educated to achieve their dreams and goals in a commercial real estate arena and other areas of their lives through this association.
Bring it. Come on. You sound like a pastor.
man.
Come on. I mean, you wrote this out.
Yeah, well,
Is this what you were talking about earlier? Is this what you wrote out last night?
Yeah,
okay.
cool.
All right.
Well, here's where I'm going. I've known you for a long time now, and I've watched you go through this metamorphosis. Okay.
Couldn't have done it without you.
When I first met you, you were pushing 300 pounds.
That's right. 316 at the limit.
Yeah, now he's a beautiful butterfly.
All right. Now you're pushing what, 220?
Not at the moment, but that's in my radar.
All right. Well, you're close to it. And the only exercise you were getting when I met you was
margaritas.
Lifting margaritas. You were curling margaritas, and I got onto your ass every time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a true story. He asked me this point blank question: why do you have to drink that many margaritas in 5 minutes? I literally would pound 3 of them.
Yeah.
I know. That's a lot of calories. I didn't realize it was the calories. I should have just drank tequila. It would have been a lot thinner.
Oh, man. But so anyway, I watched you transform and go through this entire process. You were coaching me. I hired you to bring me up on the tech end.
Which was awesome. I was like, why does this super successful guy want to hire me?
Yeah.
That was always my question.
Well, I'm a sponge for knowledge.
Well, it has been an awesome opportunity.
Yeah. So I thank you. I always want to broaden myself. And that's all I've ever done is I'll continue educating myself by hanging by like-minded people. And that's the reason I'm so excited about Advanced Investor Alliance, because we're pulling like-minded people together.
Yeah, we're not playing around.
No, we're not playing around. And what we're doing is everybody sharpen. It's like iron sharpens iron, whether it's ladies and men. It doesn't matter. Everybody's going to sharpen everybody, and they're going to learn from this. And it's going to be a great, I'm going to call it synergy.
I remember like when I was really getting into commercial, and it's funny that this shopping center that I'm looking at right now popped back up, and I remember calling you and say, hey, Michael, I got a lead on this, shopping center, and would you mind walking it with me? And you were like, yeah. And that's what Advanced Investor Alliance is. It's like, hey, holding each other's hand, going through the due diligence, going through the process of acquiring an asset, a multi-million-dollar asset. And then there's also times that you smashed me on my condo deal in Mustang. That ain't gonna work. And I was like, F you, it's gonna work. I'm savvy. And it did work. But so let's talk more about you. So, how long you've been doing this? Like you started out building houses, right? Contracting. Then when did you get in commercial? Or tell us that process there.
Well, to kind of go back just a little bit. First of all, I've lived in Norman, Oklahoma my entire life.
Were you born there?
I was born there.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm only 49 years old, going on plus
20.
Yeah.
15?
No.
5.
We're going to say 55.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, my beautiful bride, Shelley, just spent the last 4.5 years getting a doctorate and master's degree in nurse practitioners. She's highly motivated, type A. I'm highly motivated and type A. I learned not to live on the pinnacle because I'd always get knocked off. But we both also have a really, really healthy lifestyle.
You're a former bodybuilder.
She was a former bodybuilder.
You are.
I was a former bodybuilder.
You won something? What'd you
won
win?
Mr. Oklahoma in 2007 at the age of 52.
Wow.
And
how lean were you? What was your body fat?
I was about probably 3% body fat.
Dang.
At 225 pounds.
225 at 6'5"?
6'3".
You look like you're 6'5" with those pectorals.
Yeah, well, thank you, man.
So, okay, hold on. So you won that, and then didn't you play football?
I played football. What I did is I walked on with OU. I had a
Boomer Sooner?
A Boomer Sooner. I had an invitation to West Point, several other schools, Wichita State and everything. I was kind of a hometown boy and was real close to the family. And so I just said, I want to play at OU. So I walked on up at OU freshman year, and they started me on offense and defense on their junior varsity team. Their junior varsity team in 1973 had a complete traveling squad. They had Tuesday night football games. I mean, It was the full works. It was just like Saturdays. So it was a big deal.
And that was your league that you were in?
That was
the team you were on?
Big Eight.
Okay.
I was the junior varsity team. I wasn't on the all-star team. That's where the superstars that would kill you.
The NFL draftees.
Yeah, yes. So anyway, that was a great experience. And of course, I walked on, and I was having to handle everything out of my home while I was going to school. But anyway, they called me up about Christmas time, gave me a full scholarship.
Wow.
So, and I went into spring ball, and being a hometown boy and type A, I was worried about football about 18 hours a day. I quite frankly, it gave me ulcers.
Really?
I was so keyed up about it. So I finally walked in to coach one day, and I said, this is not worth this. I said, I'm not getting my studies done. I'm tired. Anyway, it's not working. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to do this, but
wow.
I'm going to hand this back to you.
So you walked off?
I walked off.
Wow. Was that a hard decision to make?
Oh, my God. It was the biggest decision I'd ever had in my life at that time.
Do you understand? I mean, you know this now, but football is everything to people. Like their whole life revolves around it.
Yes, yeah. And what was crazy, you know how we always do things for other people sometimes? Okay. We're worried about what people are going to think.
Yep.
Well, I knew when I quit, I was going to have to walk down the sidewalks where all the players were at. You know,
when you were in
teammates.
studies. Okay, yeah.
You know, and I thought, oh my gosh, okay, well, I can take it. The exact opposite happened.
What'd they say?
Of what I expected. They'd walk up to me because they didn't have a choice. That was the only way they could get an education. Now, we had our superstars that were just naturals, and they were gifted, and they were smart and everything.
Right.
But a lot of these guys are struggling, and it's their only chance to get an education. So a lot of them would walk up to me and said, McClure, we cannot believe you had the kahunas to do what you did. We really respect you for doing what you did.
Amen.
And I just, wow.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
So,
Have that kind of support.
oh, it really was awesome. And quite frankly, I enjoyed lifting weights and working out better and more than I played football, you know, so.
So you were a football player because you were 52 when you won the Mr. Oklahoma. So you were in football before. So then that's a natural progression. So you got into the weight room with these big dudes, and then you kind of started liking weight training. And you have this rigor today at your age. What is your workout schedule now?
Okay, my workout schedule is I get up at 5 a.m.
Okay.
And I will make my super duper heavy duty health drink first thing in the morning. I'll make my wife's green drinks and her protein drinks and everything for the day, send her off. Then I'll head to the fitness center and I'll do 30 minutes of Stairmaster. It's the best high intensity that I've found for training and cutting off body fat.
Brutal.
And it really keeps the muscles there.
Calorie burn?
And the calorie burn's phenomenal. And then I've also done Orange Theory, but I found out, and I got you onto the Orange Theory. I know,
which that's a whole other episode.
So, but what I was finding out, because I've got a trainer, and I have had for the last 20 years.
Right.
Because I have to have a trainer to spot me on the weights and everything and coordinate.
What do you bench now?
Form. I'm not after heavyweight.
No, well, tell me for fun. 110?
I quit benching.
50 pounds?
I know.
Dude, you look like you bench like 300.
I used to work.
Building in here.
I used to work out with 350.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so I can. My goal is to be Mr. McClure when I'm at that age.
Hey, I was in the gym with my wife last weekend. And our trainer, I was working out with her and her trainer, and he put 435 pounds on a hack squat machine. Now this is the plates,
right?
After 3 sets, and said, "Okay, give me 10 reps," and she pumped them out.
This is your wife, Shelley?
This is my wife at 128 pounds.
All right,
but anyway, I hop on there, and it about killed me.
So college. You had the rationalization. You already had this kind of mindset. Where am I going? This is, I can get hurt playing football. It's not going to give me the fulfillment that I want. You got introduced to weight training, which obviously stayed with you all these many years. Get us dialed in on how'd you get into real estate?
Okay. Well, first of all, I got to tell you.
Get to the point, Mother.
My whole life has been based on, I'm going to say, the book of Proverbs.
Okay.
And the positive words that are spoken in the book of Proverbs. Affirmations. Okay. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
I hear it.
It comes right down to every guru that's out there that's preaching success and whatever. Their basis can be found in the Bible through the Word on how to be successful.
So you right now you're dropping nuggets on us. Your success of your 1,000 units, your huge commercial portfolio, has been boiled down to affirmations. Is that the nugget you're trying to drop on us right now?
Yes, sir. Okay. Because you got to understand.
Okay.
I grew up in a construction family.
Like your parents?
My dad was a carpenter.
Okay.
Mom was a housewife, and I worked on the job. I was 6 foot tall in grade school. So he said, "Get your butt out there and earn your house."
So what was the first thing that you learned? Was it framing?
No. At that time in my life, we had these gigantic 8-foot forms that were 2 foot wide, and each one of them weighed 150 pounds. Well, he'd make me carry these things around the job sites.
Like wall forms, or
no? They were foundation forms for the stem walls.
Okay.
Concrete.
So, the form to pour the concrete in.
Right. This is before.
So concrete work.
Concrete.
You didn't mix it. You called the truck in.
We would pour the foundation, and then after we got the foundation poured, everybody else would come in, and then we would frame the house, and then we would trim the house. So I went through the entire process of carrying an nail apron and doing the whole ball of wax for many years.
From foundation
from dirt to roof.
From dirt to roof.
Yeah, and what was really, really cool is my dad was old school. He had built a lot of the military housing in Norman and Lawton a long time ago.
Okay.
So he taught me a lot of the techniques that they used to move objects with leverage.
So let's talk about your dad. What was your dad? Was he like the contractor, the construction guy, the laborer? Was he an investor?
My dad was basically a crew leader of a frame crew and a trim crew for years and years and years.
So like a foreman.
Yeah, he basically ran his own frame crew and trim crew, and then all of a sudden he found himself people wanting to build houses and so forth.
So is this a natural progression?
It's a natural progression.
So you were born into this.
I was born into hard work, but the most important thing my dad told me is you keep a smile on your face, you don't curse at people.
Damn.
And you don't argue.
Shit.
And you treat everybody with respect.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I'm just teasing. I'm trying to, you're so dialed in right now. I've never heard that before. I didn't, I've known you for, God, over 10 years. I did not realize that your dad was intricate in your kind of just awareness of you're just so gifted in country. So I can't wait to get in. This is a long intro here, man, because like we want to get into the due diligence because
we've got some juicy stuff here.
The due diligence is like the reason why we started with due diligence. On my very first book I've written, The Savvy Landlord, it says due diligence always pays off. It's always. And I noticed that I thought I was a really good due diligence guy until I started hanging around with you when I was buying a couple commercial properties. And the way you approach due diligence blew my mind. And I'm just fascinated on that. So let's just get back to, let's just dial in. So you were raised into this. Where did it become reality for you that you were going to do this? Were you always doing labor jobs? Were you always framing?
I was the happiest when I had a sledgehammer in my hand.
Demolition.
Demo.
Well, you have the physique for that.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Take a whole house down with a sledgehammer.
Didn't take any brain work.
Maybe we should do a fundraiser for AIA where we can get a junky car and everybody gets a sledgehammer and just beat the piss out of it.
But what I want to go back to, I want to share to everybody that's listening.
Yeah.
It is so important to write down your affirmations, write down your verses that you believe in, or the positive statements.
Give us an example.
I am so happy and blessed that I have health, abundant favor, and abundant happiness.
Awesome. It's awesome. I love Brian Tracy. I like myself. I love myself. I like myself. I love myself. That's my affirmation. Or abundance. I don't know. We need to do a separate podcast for this, but. So you where'd you get that? Who inspired you to have affirmation?
Okay, man, you just plugged into my vein.
Oh God,
Earl Nightingale.
Oh, I text that shit. I just text that to you.
You sent me his book.
No, that's his greatest
hits book. But you will not believe this. It's so important for the children. When I was in grade school, every day before I went to school.
Your dad turned you on to this?
No. My brother was working for Montgomery Wards. And he had all these positive deals posted everywhere. And he brought me some Earl Nightingale albums.
So he worked at Crossroads Mall?
He worked at Crossroads Mall.
Wow.
At Montgomery Wards. Okay.
What department?
It was the appliance department.
I bought a washer and dryer there when I moved here.
Yeah, but you weren't born yet. So anyway, he got me these Earl Nightingales.
Cassettes, tapes, whatever.
No, we didn't have cassette tapes.
8-track?
We just had. I had.
You just hummed?
This was unbelievable, but I had a 68 RPM album.
A record.
A record.
Oh my gosh! I'm going to buy you a record for Christmas.
But it was the Earl Nightingale, and it's called Acres of Diamonds, and it's.
I have a comic book.
Yeah.
I stole that from.
Yeah. So, and I use the acre of diamonds when I'm talking to people or whatever the case may be.
There are diamonds everywhere.
There's diamonds everywhere.
In your backyard.
Right.
I love that story. Let's talk about that story. So, we got to stay focused because it's like personal development hour. So that's how you got turned on from your brother.
You don't get successful without personal development of yourself. You got to change your mind. You got to change your attitude.
Yep.
Change your mind.
Come on.
You are hit with so many negatives every day. You've got to convince yourself every day that you are
successful,
that perfect person, and successful.
Walking authority.
Successful is many areas of your life. You're successful in your church. You're successful with your family. You're successful with your children. You're successful as a leader, as a boss. Mm-hmm. And you're successful as a normal human being in normal surroundings.
That's it.
I mean,
All right. Now, just so you know, we're at 20 minutes in, sir.
Dude, if we need to do 4 parts on this,
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We're gonna have like, it's cool. We're gonna vote you for president.
So you were.
So this personal development. So your brother impacted. What other siblings do you have? Just a brother? Or?
I had a brother. He passed away. I've got an older sister.
Is she still around?
And she is managing 10 units for me right now.
Oh, so she's a part of the business.
She's part of the business. Now,
is it your senior living center?
No. What she does is I've got a package of homes throughout Norman, and she takes care of that. She's a little bit elderly,
cool,
but she does a fantastic job.
Answers the phone for that.
She takes care of it and does the bookkeeping and everything on her 10 units. So I put her into her own property.
Savvy.
Her property management company is called McClure Properties. Okay, my son Joseph, he will help her. He assists me, and he does a fantastic job of offering support.
He was a property manager for that big apartment he just sold it?
Yes, and out in Newcastle. Shelby Pryor is my property manager who takes care of all the other rental units and everything. We kind of let Joseph and I let her run with it.
And you have someone else too for all your senior, right? Because you have that senior center.
Yeah. I have the best property management company I have ever seen.
Because isn't there like government assistance on that one where you have to be really detailed?
Yeah.
This is one thing about AIA that I'm excited about because you know the ins and outs of the legal federal paperwork that you have to turn in. Is it every month?
Yeah, you have to keep up. For instance,
on the senior living
stuff that we don't think about going into it.
On a typical apartment resident, you'll have a 1/4-inch wide folder
per unit per person.
Yes. That's where they've got
for
their
the
application.
Senior.
No, this is just a typical multifamily property that we have.
Okay.
On a senior housing facility where it's 55 and older, you'll have a folder that's at least 2 inches thick.
Wow.
Where you have to verify their income. They've got income
medical
limits. You have to verify everything so that they fit in that category, because in our senior facilities, we've got rents for certain people with this income, rents for people with this income, and so forth.
Okay.
And our senior facilities right now are 98 to 99% full all the time.
Well, I want to talk about that deal. You turned in a hotel and you turned it into a senior center.
And this is a whole podcast on its own.
I know. All right, listen, we're getting too far off. So we're back down to okay. Where the heck are we, Zach? Where are we?
Well,
Zach, we are back with Michael telling us about his family.
So you have this whole empire rolling now. So when the light bulb came on? You were wearing this nail apron, running around Norman, fixing houses or building houses. Then I remember this. From here, you became the construction for McShay Properties.
Well, you're almost correct. Let me start this. My very first milestone after working in construction industry at the age of about 23. Okay. After I got out of OU in football, I had a close friend from Canada who I worked out with daily, and we worked out every day after work. His name was CB. He kindly shared and mentored me on how he went from rags to riches during our workouts. This dude came from Canada, went to school at OU, starved to death.
And bought property.
What he did is he borrowed off of everybody's porches their milk and eggs and cheese.
Okay.
He read a book, How to Get Rich in Real Estate by Robert W. Kent, published in 1974.
Cool.
This was the Rich Dad, Poor Dad
Before.
Cool. Okay. This dude he didn't have any money. And so he bought
Owner
properties
finance?
all over central Norman and the campus area. CB. It was CB lenders.
Cool.
Okay.
And this was your first mentor?
This is my first mentor, and I didn't know what a mentor was. Okay. So, but anyway, we worked out every day, and this dude had like 29 bodybuilding trophies. And I mean, he made me look like a wimp. But anyway, he would just kindly share with me, and he mentored me, and he enjoyed talking about it. So I just listened and listened. And the biggest thing about this was there was no way in the world I was going to get into real estate because it scared me to death. I didn't have any money. At that time in my life, I was making $300 a week.
Wow.
Okay.
So you had a guy that was just kind of introducing you to the concepts of real estate. Yeah. Did you buy the book and read it?
I went and got that book, and I read it. And you know what? This was my very first mastermind experience.
Was this, what year is this?
This was
in the 80s?
This was in the it was, this is probably late 70s.
Okay, so interest rates?
18%.
So
I didn't know that you couldn't have 18%. I didn't know,
see, you're going to be on every podcast till we die.
It probably drives
like all
you
the
nuts
wisdom,
people freaking out about the 8% we have now. Then
the 8% we have now is heaven.
Yeah.
Okay. The only problem with the 8%, if you do a calculation right now on a $2 million asset,
okay,
on a 25-year AM at 3.5%, it's $10,000 plus or minus a month.
Okay.
That same $2 million asset at 25 years at 7.5% is $15,000 a month. Okay.
50%.
Well, that's $5,000 more a month than your interest.
Wow.
Monthly. Okay. So,
1 point makes a huge difference.
Back when I did this, and what you guys have done also, is I went in and bought these properties. I mean, these were like $12,000 and $15,000 properties that today appraise for $125,000 and $135,000.
So, did you want to, when your farming area, did you just stay in Norman because that's just what you knew? Or you just made a conscious decision, I'm just going to stay in Norman?
I basically stayed in Norman because of family and my children. And thus
just made it convenient.
And convenience, but also it's a university town.
So the demand.
So the demand was there, and at that time you could buy those properties.
Now the demand is still off the charts, but there's so many housing now. I mean, there's so many developments that I see down there.
Yeah, demand's still off the chart. It's just that it's stretching everybody to the ultimate limit to afford these interest rates.
So I got a quick question. So you got started in single family real estate?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, you got to understand, I was a carpenter and a foreman doing this construction with my dad. And then what I would do is on weekends and nights, I would go remodel these things myself because I couldn't afford to hire people to do it. And I almost got electrocuted and the whole ball of wax.
Learned all the hard way.
I learned all the hard way. When I lit up one day and I lit a gas furnace and it blew me clear through the wall.
that has been my biggest fear, just so you know.
I mean, it literally blew me across the room. And it was a pot belly gas furnace stove that stood 6 feet tall out in the middle of the living room.
Yeah,
in a 1920 building.
That has been when Zach's Mr. Kind of Handy sometimes. Oh, it's no big deal. You can just go light that water heater. I'm like, oh hell, no. I ain't gonna light that water heater. Who knows how long that gas has been rolling? All right, so single family you got in the 80s, real heavy, and then you became a construction kind of general contractor, right?
I was doing construction work with my dad and foreman, and we would run 15 to 20 jobs on a month. Okay. And I was reading all of these books, and Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. That's
classic.
That's the best classic. I recommend everybody read that. And
it's mandatory.
And here's another thing I want to point out about that. I owe a lot of my success to his chapter on masterminds.
I mean, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for you. Yeah. I mean, when you came into my life, I mean, just the stability, I borrow your credibility. when I went and looked at that strip center with you, I mean, it just set the tone. Like, yeah, I'm borrowing your credibility. That mastermind. You were there, and I would definitely split that acquisition with you. I wasn't trying to use you, or that's a good thing about commercial. It's a team effort. It's not just you or by yourself. It's a group thing. The things that we need to get to this due diligence. All right, we're changing up here. Where are we at now?
Well, basically, I kept going over and over and over and duplicating the BRRRR method. Okay, that's your.
So do you remember how many units? When did you get into commercial?
Well, let's clarify for everybody. It's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat.
Say it again.
Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat.
You did the BRRRR method before it was popular.
Yes, I didn't know I was doing the BRRRR method.
You didn't even know what BRRRR meant back then.
I know. I thought BRRRR was cold. I thought you were just cold.
Right. I wonder who coined that. Somebody from probably Bigger Pockets.
So anyway, I just started doing that and rolling over and over and over and over. Well, anyway, I had an opportunity to a gentleman, a large developer, solicited me on building 5 apartment complexes.
How many units each?
They were about 200 units each.
So 1,000 units?
Yes, and so I was in his plane and in airlines every week.
What market were you in?
Well, I was in Amarillo, Texas. I was in Georgetown, Texas, and Round Rock, Texas.
Wow.
Down by Austin.
How old were you?
I was...
Still 20s, late 20s?
I was probably 30 years old.
Okay. So you were just trying to figure it out?
Well, no, I already had it figured out.
Well, no, I mean, as an economic provider for your family.
I was 30 years old. I was building projects that 40-year-olds normally did. But since I had already been in the construction
for so long,
my whole life,
had that background.
I had that background. It springboarded me, because I could talk the lingo. I was part of the club. If somebody tried to get something past me, there's no way, because I could. I was out there. I've been there and done that and seen how it's done. So I took that and built those projects, and on the end of those projects, the Oklahoma oil bust hit, where Penn Square Bank went down.
That's 84.
Yeah, and then
87.
This developer had his loans there, and he tumbled.
So you were out of a job.
Well, I was out of a job, but I was the one that contracted all these projects. So
in your name?
Yeah. Well, I was supervisor who contracted all these things, so I had to coordinate all these people that weren't getting paid, and so I and several other partners went in and contracted with the FDIC, and I held meetings in the municipalities of each one of these cities and told them, listen, there's one way we can save this project. If nobody files a lien, we can get this thing funded and go ahead and finish it. So I'd have to go in and negotiate with all the subcontractors. It was intense.
I know. You bring up another story about that property that you have on MacArthur where you're getting pinched with the Section 8 and you couldn't develop it, raise rents, but you were in a contract with the government that and how you I wouldn't say weasel, how you navigated out of that agreement to push those rents to market rent, right? Because it was an alligator.
Right. It's quite frankly, it was a beautiful property. It was just under-rented at the rates. And the problem with a lot of these projects that are tax credits, when you get in under these rates, you can only raise them so much a year.
And that's because it's sanctioned by the government to give you the money.
Right.
So these apartments back then were sanctioned by the government as well?
No.
That was just because of the Penn Square Mall.
Those were just market rate deals.
Okay.
So anyway, he imploded. We went in and completed those, and we formed a partnership. And then when we formed that partnership to complete those, we started putting together the potential of building other apartment communities. And that's when we went in and put together a bid and a proposal to the United States Postal Service. And this was in 1984.
Cool.
And
so it's a government contract.
It was a government contract. The Postal Service was using Kate Centers and towers and everything in the University of Oklahoma for all their housing. So we proposed to build a 368-bed facility which was going to be eventually an apartment complex. And we got that contract. Now, we got that contract, and mind you, we were in an environment in Oklahoma that you could not get a loan in because of the bust. 7 out of 8 banks in Norman, Oklahoma were taken over by the FDIC.
Wow, it's carnage everywhere
during that process. And at that time, I had the FDIC call me. I had like 45 houses at that time.
Just on your own, portfolio?
Just on my own portfolio. They called me and said, hey, your loans are due.
What'd you do? Pee? Shit your pants?
That's what I would have done.
Damn. Or did you give him the middle finger? I mean, there's like very little options there.
I just, there was nothing I could do or a lot of other people could do. I mean, they wouldn't negotiate with you. And so
sounds like a hard money loan, man.
That wasn't even a hard money loan. There was just no way out. And so anyway, I had to start over.
So you lost 45 houses?
This
is your own?
It's my own, yeah.
So basically you were bankrupt at one time?
I went bankrupt, yeah.
Holy it! I didn't know that.
Yeah, what I did
is... And you're so cool right now.
What I did is I went back to the banks that loaned me the money.
Yeah. I have this vision of Jesus and you're getting slapped in the back.
Well,
I mean, with the whip.
Well, the
45 houses is a lot of money, man.
The personal bankers that had loaned me the money, I went back in them and said, listen, I'm going down and I can't help it. So why don't you just let me deed these houses back to you, and you don't have to go through a foreclosure process.
Deed in lieu.
And maybe you guys can just, you can get whole again. They never forgot that.
Smart.
So you saved them, I don't know, $5,000 per house probably? Lawyer fees?
Easy.
Plus you had equity in them. You would have never acquired them.
Right, but everything
went down.
But we were in
not a recession, but a downturn.
That was a real bad recession.
It's super cool that you have seen so many cycles.
I've seen 5 cycles.
I was trying to figure this out the other day, how many cycles I've been a part of. 3 or 4. I mean, I got in 1999.
My crystal ball are the cycles. I called this cycle.
I'm gonna tell you something. I talked to my superstar mentor yesterday, and he said 6 months, and I almost didn't believe him because I'm thinking 3 years. I keep saying 3 years. It's coming. I see it already. I see commercial properties going online that would not go online. Class A properties. Yeah. I saw a Class B property go online that wouldn't go online.
Right.
Someone would have gobbled it up by now.
Yeah. And so going back to that time, it was just a disaster. I just said, to heck with this. This is like being demoted to the third team. Okay. I said, okay, I'm just going to start blocking harder and hitting harder.
So what'd you do? You went and talked to these banks. They appreciated you, the deed in lieu, which I would have too.
Yeah.
So then what? You went and picked up pieces?
And at that time, I had gotten into that partnership, and we were negotiating.
Okay.
This is after my bankruptcy. We were negotiating to get this contract for the government.
For the Postal Service?
For the Postal Service. Well,
okay.
We were able to pull that off.
Well, what would you build for them?
It was a 368-bed hotel. We had 17 maids. We had a commercial laundry on the site, and we changed their linen every day. They had forks, knives, toasters, everything. They were fully furnished.
Is that your first dive into commercial at that point?
That was my
your own not building
but your own assets.
I was one of 10 partners that we put this together. Okay. And at that time, a typical apartment was running for $275 a unit.
Do you remember where they got the funding for that? I mean, did you raise that with the 10 partners? So you were the boots on the ground. That was your equity in the game?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you earned this equity position because they saw the success that you've done prior in building, just in general, and the contractor knowledge.
Myself and my 2 other partners, we were in about a 30% position.
And then you just opened it up to the money people.
To money people.
And they were passive.
Right. And then we put this together, and anyway, we got that contract, got it housed, and those units, they rented for $1,200 a month.
And it was a governmental contract, right? They provided that.
Yeah, and those units normally would have rented for $275. We were renting for $1,200 more. Yeah,
but you included all the amenities.
We were running a hotel. So we had the expenses of a hotel.
That's pretty cool. And that's before extended stay hotels.
Right. And these guys
Think about it.
They would stay there for 2 days. They would stay there for a week, 2 weeks, or 2 months.
And they were on government contract for training as a postmaster.
Yes.
That came into Norman. That center is still there.
Yes.
The one off of Highway 9?
Yeah, the one on Highway 9.
Yeah, I've been there. I've
we
DJ'd there.
bid to build that, but they beat us. Flintco, whoever built it, beat us on the bid.
Gotcha.
All right. So that was your first commercial deal. Man, we can go on an hour on that one, just being a part of another investment group with 7 other people. That's got to be interesting. Just my little 4 people.
You want me to tell you the nuts and bolts of that?
Hey, man, but
Okay.
this is
We're
the
cool.
McClure show.
Okay,
We just
all
dropped
right.
the Advanced Advice Alliance a while back.
Yeah, I might say due diligence
All
for the next
right,
one.
June the 6th, 1986, the Postal Service, we agreed in 1985 to move them in on June the 6th, 1986.
Okay.
That date, there was going to be a $3,000 a day penalty.
For build out?
If they did not move in. Okay. We didn't close on our financing because of the economic conditions in Oklahoma until June the 6th, 1986.
What?
So your typical apartment project took 365 days to build.
At least.
A year at least. If
2
everything's
years.
going good. Okay.
That's
So
if you have holding costs. That's if you have
yes.
margins. Not what's this thing called? COVID pandemic.
So I had 2 partners, and so we found a bank in Richardson, Texas, Richardson Federal Savings and Loan. They agreed. They bought their whole board
To the project?
to the project and a construction trailer, and my partners stayed at the office and let me handle this. I had 12, I have 12,
And you were like 30-something years old?
30 years old. And I
Wow.
had 12 board members in this trailer. And I showed them on the wall a critical path schedule of the construction process. I showed them every contract on every phase of that work.
All your subs and
all the subs and everybody. And here's a critical path schedule on that. Okay. Now, I had to orchestrate this. Now, the critical path scheduling was first developed by the U.S. Navy on the Polaris nuclear submarine. Okay. And what it was real critical because you can make everything come out at the end perfectly. Okay.
So they can reproduce it.
Right. Because of my framing experience and construction experience, I drew the set of plans with no scrap. I cut out all the holes for the plumbing. I cut out all the doorways to get tubs in without having to tear any lumber out. And what we did is I rented a 7-acre lumber yard 2 miles down the street.
And prefabbed everything?
And I built a slab, and I built one unit
frame,
and numbered all the walls. So I had a plan, and I had the city of Norman come out and inspect it, and they said, okay.
So you're the first prefab guy.
I was the first prefab person in Norman, Oklahoma.
Wow.
Wow, man.
Never knew
This
that.
is worth my time.
So-
I mean, this is just fascinating.
So we built this unit, and I've got aerials where you can see there's a 20-foot by 20-foot area that's nothing but staircases that are prefabbed. There's another 20-foot by 20-foot area that's nothing but window doors and window openings and door openings.
So, Michael, when you were doing this, we're talking millions of dollars.
Yes.
Okay. And we're talking about a lot of risk in general. How were you feeling? Were you nervous, scared, 30? I mean, was it because of your background with your dad? I mean, did he fail at all at any time? I mean,
It's because
these promises are just huge.
My foundation of believing and having faith in what I can do, even though I haven't done it, I would call it forth.
Okay.
And I was not going to accept no for an answer. Now,
And you were gonna figure it out.
I wasn't unrealistic. But what I did is I got all of these subcontractors on this project.
Okay.
And I said, okay, you've turned in a bid.
Okay.
Now, what we're going to do is if you're going to do this project, I've hired Harold O'Connor, the Dean of Construction Science at OU, and we're going to go to class for 2 months on one night a week.
For each contractor?
We had 20 people in there.
Okay. I mean, but they were all invited to this?
They were all invited
to
this.
educate
and
these
you weren't
folks.
invited. If you didn't come, you didn't build the project.
Okay. So you were trying to get everybody on the same page of how to maneuver scheduling, how to maneuver ordering material.
I was teaching
how to
people.
get purchase orders correctly.
Right. I was teaching people that I was going to make more money for them than they had ever seen on any project they'd ever built. because they were going to build. So
you had no stress at all? I mean, did you have any diarrhea moments here? I mean,
sleep at night?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Listen,
I'm dumbfounded.
there was I would go sometimes 48, 72 hours without sleep, but I wasn't stressed.
You just enjoyed this process?
I enjoyed this so much. It was like,
so now I know why you're still a psycho.
Is it the challenge that drove you?
The challenge, adrenaline, yeah.
No, that's why you're so crazy now, because I can never figure you out. Like, you're building, how many units are you building down there?
80.
80 units down there right now. You've waited wisdomly through COVID.
Right.
And I'm like, you're already there. You've already arrived.
No, it's the race.
I know it's the challenge.
It's the challenge.
The
Why do you run? Why do you want?
I know that's me though.
Why do you bike 100 miles a week?
I know. It is truly is the challenge. And when people told me that I would never be successful, when they said that you should, go learn a trade, VanCauwenbergh, because you ain't going to go to college. I just wanted to prove everybody wrong. Basically, that was a challenge. If you're illiterate, you can't write a book.
I had people so fighting mad at me, telling me that I couldn't do something so crazy.
No, it's phenomenal. I mean, look where you've been through recessions and banks that are conniving to lying. I mean, and still being this positive and not crotchety. And a bunch of names just popped in my head. Of just people that have been burned and hurt and so mad about this industry of the hell they've been through. And we're in it. We're about to hit it right now.
Having a great attitude, number one, is about forgiving.
Okay. Now we're going to get serious.
All the people who have hurt you or done you wrong.
Is that what I need to do? Start praying for people?
Yes.
My enemies?
Well, here's the bottom line. I've had many people that I've got all kinds of wounds in the back, emotionally, by being stabbed in the back, just because I felt like I was done wrong, and I was.
Sure.
But if I let that bother me, they continued that knife in my back.
It's just going to hold you back.
Yeah, it just holds you back. If you forgive them,
and move on,
you just move on, and it makes you a better person. I was in a lawsuit. And this gentleman had gone to prison, and he sued me.
In prison?
He was in prison.
And he filed against you?
Filed a lawsuit against me.
What in the world?
And I thought,
how's this possible?
It's insane. Well, we both owned a part of an apartment project, and of course, when you were in the position he was in, you can't be on a loan.
Of course.
Okay, so I traded my property and its interest for his, and so forth. So I got him out of this one, and he took over this one and put it in his wife's name, and so forth.
Okay, to help him. Basically, you were trying to help him liquidate some assets.
Well, we were just trying to clean it up.
Okay.
So
he can't do anything because he's in prison. This dude's in prison, basically.
But when he sued me for $1 million, and we spent 9 hours in mitigation, trying to mitigate this lawsuit, or mitigate
before you get in there,
arbitrate it. So anyway, before we ever started, a past future federal judge said, "Okay, now I'm going to go down there, and he said, you got to understand, when you go to court of law, you can't bring up any history of anything." He said it's what he says versus what you say, and it's basically based down on how the judge really feels.
I agree.
He said, so you're better off not going to court. Well, after I threw up, thought I had it.
I say that way when I evict a tenant. So I mean, it's a 50-50. It's 50, regardless that paid or didn't pay.
But really and truly, when I got down to it, we go through a process. God hones us and chisels us. I'm this granite statue because God's chiseled me, and a couple of times the arm broke off and they had to glue it back on. So, but anyway, this past judge asked me, "What do you want me to tell him to start this negotiation off?" There's a conference table 16 feet long, and there's 4 attorneys sitting around it. I got up and walked around the table once, and I looked at him as sincere as I can be, and I said, "You tell him how much I appreciate him, and I would not be where I'm at today if it hadn't been for him, and I appreciate him."
Even though you're getting sued?
Even though I was being sued for $1 million. And
on what grounds?
I still couldn't figure it out. Okay. And so
Exactly. You're in prison.
He saw it wrong, and I saw it was right. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I forgave him, and I just said, listen, I'm still a better man because of you.
Okay. Well, that's called taking the high road.
And no matter who we bump into or who we associate with, we're going to soak up.
Either positive or negative.
Either positive or negative. Well, unfortunately, I got to be around him while he was on a real positive point in his life. And then all of a sudden it went negative. So anyway.
So the judge, you told this judge, I like this, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. Then what happened?
At the end of the day, we ended up settling and then going to court.
Cool.
And they were graceful and said, okay, we'll take this amount. And I said, perfect. This is at a bad time economically here and everything. So it worked out perfectly.
All right.
The long end of it is
all right. So
grace.
We're 15 minutes into this. So we're going to pause here and we're going to do like just a quick 10 minutes on due diligence.
Okay.
Is that cool? And then wherever it left off where your story is, and we'll have another episode, Mr. McClure Part 2, because we can spend hours just on all your lawsuits. I remember the one lawsuit that was just gut wrenching for me when a child died, and we're not going to go into it. I'm just going to say yes. At one of his properties, a child died. Just think about the liability of that. So we're going to leave a cliffhanger here for Part 2.
Okay, stay tuned
for that one. So, Michael, you got a property on your list. Someone, a realtor, a broker, a friend said, hey, I'm thinking about buying this property. And I've seen you, when I first met you, you were just always been authentic and genuine, just always willing to help. And I think your intention is for them not to get burned, because you've seen it so many times over and over. People get into real estate or commercial for all that matter, and they just make the wrong decisions.
You know, Napoleon Hill preaches power.
Right.
Well, the bottom line, power is knowledge.
That's right.
Knowledge is knowing more about something than somebody else knows.
I try to teach my son this. I'm like, dude, the reason why I'm sitting where I am today and the reason why I'm wealthy is because I just know more than the average person. I just read more. I'm no special than anyone else, especially in this room. Zach and I think we're equal. I may have a few extra units than he does. That doesn't mean it boils down to education. You are well more averse. You've been on this earth a lot longer than I have. A lot longer. I was just teasing. So let's just get back to the focus here. Hey, here's this address, 123 Main Street. What's the first thing go in your mind? You segregate it between commercial and single family?
Well, here's a good example. Zach brought up Justin Gentry.
Okay, let's do it.
About, I'm going to say 5-6 years ago, might have been longer, Justin called me up and said, Michael, I've got 1,100 unit apartment complex in Oklahoma.
Is this the one he's working on right now?
No. And I can get it for like $3,500 a unit. I said, you got to be kidding. I said, get down here. It was on a Sunday. He called me on a Saturday and said, can you help me look at this?
Okay.
We met at the office, and he walked in, and I said, what's your location? And we pulled it up on Google Earth. And it was a pretty recent photo, aerial. And I clocked in and got down in, and I said, okay, this is all mansard, and it's all flat roofs. I said, you see all those dark spots? He said, yeah. I said, that's standing water.
Okay.
I said, so...
Those repairs there.
I said, you got half of this,
potential.
Half this project is standing water on those roofs. He said, yeah, I know there's a lot of leaks in those upstairs units. I said, well...
How much is that going to cost?
I said, this is going to cost you about $350,000 just to replace these roofs. And that's not the structural part.
And we haven't even...
I said,
rendered them out. We haven't even marketed them.
I said, you haven't even got to the rest of it.
The man's ears.
So he was thinking he had $500,000 or $600,000 worth of rehab to do
on 1,000 units,
on 1,100 square foot units. He was going to get it to a certain point and so forth, and just let the other unit pay for itself and so forth. By the time we got through there, it was at least 3 times or 4 times the amount of money he even anticipated going in there and putting those funds in, just by going in and looking
on the aerial.
So
you, and I know that I learned that from you, because when I was buying that, remember I was buying the racetrack on 23rd Street, that old store on Drexel. And I remember in the parking lot, you pulled the aerial, and just to get a scope of what the AC units were, how many AC units were, can I see the year or see if it looks newer? And then also you could see if they relayed the roof and compared it to the property next to it, you can see the rain lines or the set lines.
Right.
So you try to get, when you approach any property, let it be commercial or residential, you do the exterior. Okay, so then what's your next process there? So you calculate what your expenses are or what potentially could be.
Well, the first thing you're going to look at is sometimes you don't even want to look at a property because of its location. Yeah. And we all know it's location. And one of the most important things about that is you don't want to buy a property that's in an area that seems to be going down.
Path of progress.
And the one thing about your building that you bought, they had just built new buildings across the street and right down the street. And so that was
path of progress.
That was progress. So that's a good location. The other thing I pointed out to you on that purchase was real important. You got to look at the street. Okay. That street had been redone in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it was part of maps.
Which it was part of maps. So therefore, they weren't going to do anything else, and the street was superb. Okay.
So the curb.
So you got to look at the location. You got to look at the street. The other thing you've got to look at is what's on the schedule for ODOT.
Smart.
Okay. Nobody knows what the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 year plan is on ODOT.
I have so many stories about that I remember my mentor was like, I don't even know how we knew that. He's like, hey, one day they're going to refix I-44 and 235.
Yep. And
I didn't believe him. I'm like, how does he know that? There was a 10-year, they just finished it. But he knew because he was in city planning meetings on ODOT cases, finding out what roads are going to be tore up and what are not, to find deals.
There's one in Norman, that car lot there off of Lindsay and I-35.
Yep.
It was nice. You could see all the cars, and then ODOT came in and widened Lindsay and I-35 and hides everything from the field of view.
One of the apartment complexes that went down on this developer that I previously worked for was Apple Creek Apartments at Robinson and I-35 in Norman. Okay. We had this thing under construction, and we're putting a siding on it, and ODOT sent us a letter and said, we're going to annex and buy the front portion of your property for an access ramp, an egress ramp. Oh, we couldn't say no, but that ramp was going to shut down the whole access to that whole project.
For how long?
For the next year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
So here we had probably a $12 million facility that was going to be shut down
for a year and a half.
For a year and a half, but you couldn't lease because you couldn't get people in there. Nobody's going to want to drive in there.
They can't get in.
They couldn't get in. So you had to drive around through a neighborhood and so forth. Fortunately, we didn't own that. We were doing it for the FDIC.
Wow. So the next thing is, so you do location, Google Earth, get in a scope, exterior, then you go to ODOT. Okay, what's after that? Then what goes through your mind?
Okay, the next most important thing is your engineering survey.
Survey, okay, like the land. That's one of the things I learned from you. What to do with the actual asset? What's the best and highest use of the property?
Well, and more important than that is your phase one.
Well, yeah, that's required by the bank, and phase one is a chemical test of the soil your property is on. So this is, if you're new to commercial and never done commercial before, 90% of all banks require a phase one certificate. And sometimes you can sign off on them. Sometimes they have to pay a fee. Now, there's a property that you helped me that I had to run away, 34,000 square foot little strip center that had a lot of contaminants.
Yes.
Made it to phase 3, which is extremely rare. Like a dummy, I did it. I didn't do the acquisition, but it wouldn't have been... you couldn't close that deal if you did not have a proper phase 1. But that property that I walked away from, that guy paid cash. He didn't do a phase 1. So it's very rare. 90% of the banks do a phase 1. I've seen a couple banks just want to sign off on it. You're responsible. I've done a refi with a credit union where they just threw the document at me and I just signed it. But I've also did acquisitions where it's required. Like, we're not going to move forward until
right.
this phase 1 is completed.
Yeah. So
environmental.
So the things that are so important that are kind of hidden, you've got to know that research. And there's people that will research this. You can pay them to go out and find all this information.
Like a survey.
Mm-hmm. We would do a feasibility. When we built, at one time, we built roughly 5,000 apartment units, and we managed about 8,000 across Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. We had about 350 employees. But anytime we built an apartment project, we would have to have a feasibility study.
If it makes sense.
To get, is this going to work? Is it needed? And so forth, so forth. And then you had all kinds of studies by the architect and so forth, so forth. A lot of people will cut corners, and all of a sudden they get their butts bit.
And I think people cut corners because they don't understand the game.
Yeah, they're not knowledgeable.
And it just takes money to be in commercial. And it's not for the faint at heart. All right. So then you do the feasibility, and then you do the typical, because we're going to wrap this up. You do the typical walk the property, go through the inspections, heat and air, mechanical, and then the curb appeal. Is there anything else?
You go through and do a complete cost analysis on what your use is going to be on that property. Okay. Are you going to want to rehab it? Are you going to do a new face on it? Are you
scraping it? I learned that from you.
Are you going to scrape it? Are you going to put?
And
new
I sold
roofs on
that property because of you.
Right.
They remember that medical building I bought. You're the one. It's like either build up,
right,
to get the real ROI. This is why Advanced Investor Alliance is created, because these are the conversations that we had in that class I mentioned last time. Either you're going to build up, it would be 150, or what is the value if you scrape the thing? You know, so crazy. I sold it, and the gal bought it for scrape value.
Yep.
And she's going to build a whole new medical facility there.
That's awesome.
I know, and I drive by there all the time, and it's nothing's been done, and I'm like, wow, that's some holding costs.
Well, here's one real important issue: is you ran into this, and you've got to do it on every property. Is what is your municipality's governing rules?
Let me write that down, because actually these two gentlemen that I'm on the podcast actually took their time and drove and saw that facility with me, because we were in class together, and you're like, Steven, make sure, the village, and make sure you can get your permits and stuff. And sure enough, Michael, you were right. I don't know if I told you this, but I had, right when I got it under contract and did my inspections and did all that jazz, I was ready to either white box it, basically rip it all out and get it ready for the next potential tenant with TIs. But I was just kind of lazy, and I found a... what is that called? Daycare. And daycare was in business for 30 years. They were solid. My broker at the time vetted them out. It was money in the bank. They signed a LOI letter with me, and they kept hitting a roadblock with the municipal people. They kept freaking joking the dude around. It was sad. Like, and of course, there's a lot more detail, but I'm just going to be real flippant. The guy had to get one signature on the occupancy permit from one guy on a certain timetable, and that guy was on vacation, and it got kicked back, and they just kept delaying my poor tenant. And it boiled down to this: after I hired someone else, they said the village really just wants to keep this medical. They don't want. I don't know if they could say that legally. I don't know. But that's what the message they got to me was. They really want to keep this office park medical.
Right.
Okay, but we got a car wash right behind me. But hey, that's medical.
So your city can kill you. I had a project in Georgetown, Texas.
Tell me.
We were framed up, putting a siding on the project. The city came in and red tagged the project, shut us down.
For what reason?
We already had building permits. We had everything approved, everything. They decided that the sewer line capacity that was 3 years away from it was 3 miles away from the project was going to be increased, and we had to go in limestone bedrock
to dig it up,
to put in a 2-mile section of sewer line,
dude.
And
Zach has a property just like this.
Yes, just found out.
I would love to hear that story. Zach, we could get you on the right. We're running out of time. But the reality is I had that same effing property problem in Florida on that beach property I had.
All right.
They were forcing me to tie in to their sewer line, and I already had a septic tank. Yeah. But they mauled me and said, you're going to either pay $8,000.
Okay. So why would you get into property if you're going to get bit with stuff like this? Well, let me tell you why. Again,
Due diligence.
power is knowledge. Okay, there are people that do this due diligence. We had an architectural firm that will go into the city government and leave a paper trail and ask them all these questions.
Ooh, for liability.
For liability. In other words, if they approved it or they didn't respond within a certain time, that was their approval to go forward.
That's right.
Okay?
Savvy.
So all of that information, you have to go in and have somebody represent you, either an attorney that's really Kendra is awesome in that area.
I know that. I just used her, and that's exactly what happened. She's like, Stephen, request the permits from the seller, because the seller built this building, and I was like, I've never done that before. It worked.
Yeah, and then of course, if you're going to this 80 unit, it's probably going to be an $8.5 million facility. I'm also using Sean Rieger, who negotiates with the city of Norman all the time.
Your attorney.
He's a great attorney.
So you put them on notice. This new project that you're building, the senior cottages.
Yeah.
So you put him on retainer to get these document questions to the city, and if they don't respond, that's
right. But
smart.
And he will have done this before. So you've got to find somebody that's not a trial attorney. You got to find somebody specific in that particular area.
You're speaking my love language, man.
Okay.
All right. Are we good right now? Are we good? Do you have any questions, Zach?
I've got one. Kind of ties everything together a little bit. From going from single family to commercial.
Yes.
There's a lot of people out there that want to do that. What would be a good piece of advice you would give them trying to scale up or level up from single family to the commercial world, since it's such a different animal?
Good question.
Okay. There is so much knowledge in websites and Bigger Pockets, YouTube, whatever the case may be. You can go in and you can Google what's the due diligence list that should be prepared. And then under that, you'll also find 5 or 6 people that professionally do it. Okay. So, number one is knowledge. If you're going to attempt to do a commercial project,
to scale up or move to the next level,
you've got to educate yourself. You've got to read, you've got to listen, you've got to research, or you've got to be a part of an alliance of like-minded people that are going to help you, give you knowledge, and so forth. Now, they may not be able to give it all, but they can give you enough to give you a warm fuzzy.
I remember the feasibility. We were going to do that storage unit down there in Moore. And I was involved in that storage unit, and you're like, hey, do a feasibility. We did the feasibility. Now, we hired a third party, but the third party was overzealous.
Yep.
And you saw the sinkhole.
Yep.
And changed the whole dynamic of that transaction, and we walked away. And today, Michael, just so you know, because I don't let no deals go, it's still there. Nothing has happened.
Right.
And some other investor has, I think, have it under contract, but it hasn't transaction because I follow the closing, and they're trying to sell it as just a frontage now. And that whole space in the back, where we're going to build all those storage units, went up in smoke because of that sinkhole. But the feasibility said that you could be done, but that's not always the case.
You know, I noticed something on the web. I was just kind of brushing up and looking at ideas, and one of the gentlemen that does feasibility studies for a living, he said usually 45 days will give you plenty of time. Well, that for to buy a commercial building, okay, but to build an apartment project and go through the city,
6 months, a year,
6 months. When I bought that 5 acres in Norman for this housing project, I had a 6 month with a 3 month contingency for my due diligence
for locking it up.
But my contract specified exactly what I was going to be doing during that process.
Smart.
Instead
if it got delayed, you still have that contract stating these need to be done.
Right.
Smart.
Right.
Back to the feasibility. Even when doing a feasibility study, having somebody local that you can talk to is going to help solidify that, I guess, is what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
Well, first of all,
it'll turn you on to something that you didn't really think of before, like best use of the property.
Is that feasibility study done by people who are local to the area, or is it a company coming back down in to research it and
you
thinking
typically
what
won't
they do
find
best?
In Norman, you won't find anybody that does feasibility studies. It'll usually be somebody out of Tulsa or Oklahoma City or
outside of. Or have you ever hired a feasibility outside of the state of Oklahoma?
Yes.
Just for your big apartments?
Yeah. Well,
Now, did you hire someone for your cottages?
Yes.
For feasibility?
Basically, I went in to get a refinance loan on that.
Okay.
And they hired a MAI appraiser out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he did a feasibility study
For
on his
that appraisal.
But it was like an inch thick.
For that bank.
For that bank.
So you can pull out all that equity and build.
Right.
When are you anticipating breaking ground?
Probably, I've been kind of waiting to see when we can lock in interest rates at a lower rate. And I'd like to be in the 4 to 5% range.
Cool.
And right now, I don't see that. From what the Fed chair is saying right now, they're not putting the brakes on yet.
No.
They're probably going to hit 8 to 10% easy.
Yeah, a banker called me the other day. I mean, I just refinanced. I got 4.775.
Yeah. So that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
So
all right. Well, let's move on.
Well, let me.
So, what's your last thing? Or Zach, do you have another question?
I think that's enough for today.
Okay. All right.
Hey, man, let's go eat, man.
All right. So there's a couple of things I want to point out.
All right. Talk to us. Wisdom.
I've already mentioned this, but this is really nuggets for all those listening. And you just if you want to really be successful,
and I do.
When Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, he interviewed 500 of the richest men in America.
I don't know for sure, but it sounds about right.
And he put it all in paper, and I think it took him 10 years, 20 years to write the book. Okay, so anyway,
so what you're saying there is this is a time game. You can't get rich tomorrow.
No, but you've got to get knowledge, and you've got to, most importantly, I'm going back to that positive attitude. It's one of the most influential books of all time, pointing the way to personal achievement and financial independence. Hill teaches that power is required. Now, listen to this. Power, which is knowledge, is required for the accumulation of money. The mastermind of the Advanced Investor Alliance and many other individuals have harnessed this power. This is why we're here. This, which defined as a coordination of knowledge and an effort in the spirit of harmony between two or more people, like my trainer back years ago, for the attainment of a definite purpose. It has been said many times, you are most like the 5 people you hang around. Are they going where you want to go? Or do they have the knowledge to assist you climbing the ladder? This is why we are here, so we can create a synergy together as a mastermind group, sharing our knowledge with others and sharing with us as we all benefit. Thus, we become better equipped to have that power. And I just want to say one other thing. Behind all of our properties, they're not units.
Okay.
They're homes.
For someone else.
Our mission statement is to transform lives through the best quality, affordable housing and to empower families and individuals to enjoy and experience the American dream of having pride in where they live and or shop.
Thanks for listening to the AIA podcast. Stay motivated by listening to our other powerful episodes at AdvancedInvestorAlliance.com.